Reuniting after 60 years, the historical freedom riders continue the fight for equality. Recent developments in the shooting of 27-year-old mother of three have revealed a potential connection related to her homicide investigation. Manitoba Indigenous families are finally receiving answers after remains were found after a serial killer that targeted Indigenous women has been charged. More of that later. Kaya, I'm Leanne Djilandi Dolby, and this is the National Indigenous Times Daily News Bulletin for the 27th of February 2025. This week marks 60 years since the historic 1965 Freedom Ride, a student-led journey that exposed segregation and racism in regional New South Wales. The movement, inspired by the US Civil Rights Movement, was led by activist Charles Perkins and the Student Action for Aborigines Collective. One of the original Freedom Riders, Gary Williams, reunited with fellow participants to reflect on the impact of their efforts. They recalled confronting blatant discrimination, such as segregated cinemas and banned access for Aboriginal people to access public spaces. To honour the legacy of the Freedom Ride, the University of Sydney has announced a new scholarship for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, providing $8,500 annually to 2 undergraduates. Police have launched a homicide investigation following the fatal shooting of 27-year-old mother of three, Cara Jade Werribone, in North Toowoomba on Saturday afternoon. Miss Werribone was found critically injured on a footpath on Christmas Street around 1:50 p.m. yesterday afternoon and was rushed to Toowoomba Hospital, where she later died. 2 men were also treated at the scene, one for a head injury. Family and friends have expressed their grief, with loved ones mourning the loss of Miss Werribone, who had also suffered the tragedy of losing her brother Nicholas 3 years ago. Authorities are urging witnesses or anyone with a dashcam footage from West Street and Christmas Street area between 1:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. to come forward. Whadjuk advocate Lorraine Pryor is leading efforts to support Aboriginal women affected by incarceration, substance abuse, domestic violence, and intergenerational trauma. Through her Bulu-based not-for-profit Voice of Hope, she provided mentorship, cultural connection, and essential resources to help women transition back into society. Every Monday, Voice of Hope hosts workshops focused on healing, cultural reconnection, and practical support, while also preparing care packages for women leaving prison. Pryor, who has lived through the cycle of incarceration herself, is passionate about breaking the system's failures and advocating for real change. Her vision includes establishing a transitional accommodation centre to provide a safe and supportive space for women reintegrating into community. We need to stand up and put these things in place, she said. It's our generation that's going to make the change. Authorities in Manitoba, Canada, have reported the discovery of potential human remains in Prairie Green landfill near Winnipeg during a search for 2 missing First Nations women. The remains are believed to belong to Morgan Harris, 39, and Mercedes Myron, 26, of Long Plain First Nation, who were murdered by serial killer Jeremy Skibicki in 2022. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Chief Medical Examiner have engaged with forensic analysis and DNA confirmation set to follow. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs called the discovery a painful but significant moment, reaffirming the long fight for justice for Indigenous women. The Australian federal government has announced a $44 million investment to support Indigenous students in remote communities, ensuring the survival of more than 50 boarding schools at risk of closure. The funding will support around 2,500 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, aiming to provide culturally appropriate care, support, upgraded technology, and school facilities. This also includes employment of Indigenous teachers, wellbeing officers, and trauma-informed counsellors. Minister for Indigenous Australians, Mullindiri McCarthy, emphasised the importance of education in closing the gap. Moving to a boarding school can be a big change in a young person's life, and they need appropriate supports, Senator McCarthy said. The award-winning stage production Upu is set to make its Australian premiere at the Sydney Opera House from May the 7th to the 10th, 2025. A powerful celebration of Māori and Pasifika literature, Upu brings together the words of 28 poets spanning 5 decades and more than a dozen Pacific cultures. The theatrical journey will take viewers through the Pacific, sharing diverse perspectives from young activists, poet laureates, and literary prize winners. Speaking about what to expect, artistic director Fasatua Amosa So the performance will be pure magic happens when poetry is lifted off the page and performed. There's a connection that anchors these stories straight into the souls of our audience. And that's today's Daily News Roundup from the National Indigenous Times. For more news, head to nit.com.au and sign up for our free newsletter.